I'm back with journalist and podcaster Trish Regan, her website trishintel.com. Trish, let me turn to what we've been, I would say, enduring under Biden over the last 6 or 7 months. Are you a little surprised at the aggression with which Biden has moved on all these different fronts, the border, kind of promiscuous spending, of course, the whole catastrophe in Afghanistan? Do you see all this as a continuation, perhaps, of what happened earlier under Obama? Or is Biden sort of taken things to a new level?
Oh, I think he's taken it to a new level for sure. I mean, I think this is the next, this is the next chapter, so to speak. This is Obama 2.0, plus, right? Because the aggression of these policies is so much more. When you look at what's happening at the border, I mean, it's a tragedy. It is absolutely a tragedy. And, there's such a thing as the law of unintended consequences. And boy, are we seeing that play out, with little kids being sent on their own across the border. So the border's an issue. The economy, I anticipated that one. I knew, we've been talking about it a lot. And Dinesh, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, about the creep of socialism, right? We knew that one was coming. What's curious to me is he has changed. Joe Biden has changed significantly during his 30 years in politics. I remember meeting him as a kid, actually, back in New Hampshire, way back when, a lot of years ago. This is not the same Joe Biden that once was campaigning for president years ago in New Hampshire in the primary. This is not the same Joe Biden at all. He's been corrupted by the left wing of the party. And I don't know, maybe he, this is what he figures it takes to get elected. And so he's trying to court them. He's certainly courted the likes of Bernie Sanders. This is a dangerous direction for the country. I anticipated that. What I didn't fully expect was the absolute total ineptitude in foreign policy. I mean, look, I'm all for not spending extra time, money, and lives policing the world. And I understand there's certain things you need to do, right, as the hegemonic power of the world, as the world's reserve currency. But then again, you don't want to be wasting your resources. So I understood and supported a plan to exit Afghanistan. But my gosh, I mean, not like this. Dinesh, I've never been so affected by a news cycle as this one. I mean, I just look at it and it's so futile what happened. It could have been prevented. And it really makes you sick to your stomach when you see what's going on and the human tragedy and the loss that will happen. I mean, I look at it as a woman. I remember you mentioned Columbia University years ago. I remember studying pre 9/11 about learning about the Taliban and the challenges for women in Afghanistan years ago. And my heart broke then. And now I look at it and my gosh, I mean, where are the women? Where's Ilhan Omar? Where's AOC? Nobody wants to stand up for the women that are over there. Nobody's working aggressively to make sure these Americans are getting out. We got our CIA chief having to go over and meet with the Taliban. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like even in Vietnam, when we think back to the 70s, the United States didn't leave all this material behind, let alone Americans. I mean, there was later a quest to bring back Americans who, MIAs and people who died in Vietnam, bring the bodies back. But the idea of leaving thousands of Americans at the mercy of not just a foreign power, but a hostile foreign power, well, we are now at their behest. And I'm sure part of that meeting you just alluded to was all about the money. In other words, the Taliban are like, listen, we'll help you get some people out. How much are you going to pay us if you do that? So here's the United States reduced to not only having left goggles and helicopters and all kinds of guns, but is now discussing providing aid to the Taliban to consolidate the regime that we have fought 20 years to prevent.
Now, in some ways, I would just say, well, I don't think Joe Biden is that bright. I actually really don't. I mean, he may be politically swift enough to get himself elected as much as he has, but I don't think there's a whole lot going on upstairs. And I think that's deteriorated in recent years. I look at, though, Antony Blinken, and I'm like, this is a guy who was far too wedded to his viewpoint, right? We talk about the importance of understanding all sides in order to make the best decision. And this is someone who only saw his side and couldn't anticipate what really was going to happen. I mean, there are reports that the generals were warning them. They didn't want to hear it. They only wanted to sort of solve for their equation. And so now we're in the situation we're in now. You mentioned the weapons. Dinesh, that's our money. Our taxpayer dollars, billions of dollars effectively thrown away and handed into the hands of terrorists. And now they're negotiating to try and get people out, and it's going to require more of our money. I mean, come on. It's really an atrocity. And you know what? He's going to go down in history for this. And this is not political at this point. I'm sorry. Both sides recognize how wrong this was.
I mean, when I think about it, the guy who's really disappointed me is General Milley, because when I see guys like Blinken or Ned Price, I mean, these look like the kind of guys I went to college with. They're like, I want to get in this fraternity, you know. In other words, I realize that these are people with no experience of the world. If you're talking about India or Afghanistan, they don't have a clue. They have no idea what's going on. But when you look at the generals, these are people who have come through the military system. You would think that they would have some sense of esprit de corps, how to hold the military together. I mean, when I think, for example, of this woke propaganda that's going on in the military, I mean, think about it. About 55% of our military is white, and the other 45% is essentially black or Latino. It's extremely important to hold this group of people together and make them think and act as one. Why would you put out a poisonous, divisive ideology into the military that would essentially fray the confidence and the trust, the mutual trust among the soldiers?
It's an excellent point. I mean, and the one thing I think where we've really seen the spirit of meritocracy and working together and really being a colorblind society is the military, right? They've done an outstanding job at that. So to your point, why would you tear that apart? That is a tremendous success, right? It's actually, it's heartbreaking. And this story has really affected me because I just think it's all so preventable. But, you know, look, not to over dramatize, but as a student of history, I mean, I look back and there are great civilizations that have fallen. And when you look at the similarities between some of what's happening now, and again, not to over dramatize, but look, you can go right back to the fall of Rome. We should take and learn from history, right? Our lessons and try to prevent the same mistakes going forward. And yet it's like, we just can't get out of our own darn way. You know, it's almost like Dinesh, we've been really lucky, right? We're that like fifth generation. You know, you come here as an immigrant, you work hard, you hope your kids are going to have a better life they do. And it maybe continues on for a couple of generations. And then, you know, at some point, the kids, like, they get too used to it. They don't really understand what's at stake. I feel like America has kind of gotten to that point where we take things for granted that we shouldn't. And we've lost our edge. And this is very problematic because I'll tell you who's got edge. It's China. And if we're not careful, we're going to be the next France, or better yet, perhaps the next Venezuela. So we've got a lot at stake, and we got to do a better job.
When we come back, I want to ask Trish Regan about the media and also the atmosphere of censorship that now hovers around America.